Welcome viewers, Dr. Jason W. Morrison, Theologist, New South Wales, Australia. We are doing Watchtower Study Edition, November 2019. It's New Year's Eve. We're up to the heart-to-heart communication. A very strange article this, and I'll show you the reasons why. Paragraph 8. We might find it difficult to open up to others because someone might have hurt us in the past. And that's a very, very good reason not to open up to others. If someone's hurt you in the past, then that's a very, very good reason to be very careful about who you're going to share your important parts of yourself with. You've got to protect your privacy. Now, this is trying to undermine to a certain extent your ability to be very careful about who you speak to. And what this is actually doing is it's provoking backbiting and gossip and all this other stuff, because if people know too much, this is where all the slander and other things come from. Or we may feel that we lack the time and energy to cultivate close relationships. Well, the fact of the matter is that could be the truth. You can't be everything to everyone. However, we should not give up. Give up what? Just have a normal, structured life. If we want our brothers to stand by us when trials come, now this is conditional. This is a conditional statement. If we want our brothers to stand by us when trials come, we must learn to trust them now with our thoughts and feelings. I don't agree with that statement. I'm sorry. No. Trusting people with your thoughts and feelings is a very exclusive privilege for someone to have. You've got to be very careful, as it said here, who you share your thoughts and feelings with, because you'll be betrayed. You'll be undermined. It gives people, as a matter of fact, if you're not careful, it empowers people to undermine you. And that is an important step toward becoming true friends. No, it's not necessarily. If you're on a soccer team with someone, you don't get there spewing out all your thoughts and feelings about everything. The proverb says a couple of times that even a fool's counted wise if he holds his tongue. What's this say? Now, that you have purified yourselves by your obedience to the truth, that's the finished work of the Lord Jesus Christ, knowing that all your issues between yourself and God have been resolved for time and eternity, never to be worried about again, with unhypocritical brotherly affection. You've got to be careful what this sort of affection is suggesting and how it's interpreted. Unhypocritical brotherly respect might be a better word. As a result, love one another intensely from the heart. You've got to get this in its right perspective. There's 4 types of love. There's love toward God. There's your family love. There's friends love. And then there's another love. I forget what it is. Storge, Philios, Agape. And there was another one. I can't think of it offhand, but you've got love for God, love for people, family love, and then I think it's parental love, or one of those. But you've got to keep it in its right perspective. You can't just spew your thoughts and feelings out to everyone, because you're going to exhaust yourself and come undone. Jesus showed that he trusted his friends by communicating openly with them. No, Jesus, remember, he would choose James, Peter, and John to privately come with him at certain instances, didn't he? And might I just say, I no longer call you slaves, Jehovah Witnesses, Jesus said, because the slave does not know what his master does. But I have called you friends. Did you know you're the friend of God through the Lord Jesus Christ? Because I've made known to you all the things that I've heard from my Father who is Jehovah. Did you know you're God's friend? You don't owe him anything. You're his friend. If we can imitate him by sharing our joys, concerns and disappointments with others. Listen carefully as someone talks to you, and you may learn that you have many thoughts, feelings, and goals in common. Consider the example of Cindy, a sister in her 20s. She befriended a pioneer in her 60s named Mary Louise. Cindy and Mary Louise work together in field service every Thursday morning, and they talk freely with each other about a variety of subjects. I'm sure they do, and a lot of it would be whinging and backbiting prettied up. Cindy says, I enjoy having deep conversations with friends because this helps me to know and understand them better, and probably yourself. Friendships thrive in warm atmosphere of open communication. That's true, as long as it's constructive. Like Cindy, if you take the initiative to have warm and open conversations with others, your friendships with them are likely to grow. And Proverbs 27:9 says, oil and incense make the heart rejoice, so does sweet friendship springing from sincere counsel. And notice the sincere counsel. You can't just throw out and spew out your thoughts and feelings to everyone, because you will at some stage get hurt. You will get hurt, as you did in the past. So there's a certain amount of wisdom connected to this. We'll watch some videos now.
Hello everyone.
Hello everyone, it's only us again.
We're back.
We're back.
We thought we'd do, we're going to do a series of probably 2, 3, possibly more
See how the flow goes.
See how it goes.
It could go into one long one. We don't want it to.
No.
It's a lot of information and we don't want to get people confused.
Just examples of classic manipulation, control of other individuals, busybodies, men, elders, call them what you will, interfering in other people's lives when there's absolutely no need to do so.
Namely ours.
Namely ours.
Just because that's what we can speak from experience and that's all we can do.
So to the local elders, let's get this absolutely right from this point onwards. If you ever watch this, once again, I'll reiterate, this is not an attack on anybody as an individual. We all love you dearly, and we hope that one day you will be talking about things that you've had to go through as a result of being controlled and manipulated yourselves as elders. But this actually is a series to actually look at why people not only interfere but actually damage other individuals
without even looking at the consequences.
Yeah.
When you are an elder, we're hoping that this will also help you in the way that you treat other people in the future, because your little handbook will not be telling you the majority. It gives you guidelines, but what it doesn't tell you is how to deal with everybody on an individual basis that are human. Because when you do your little bit of interfering, you walk away and carry on with your life. The devastation that you cause and leave
is
behind,
unbelievable.
For people that are wanting to try and do what's right, is devastating. And you actually don't look like you have any consideration as to what that causes. You just think you've done it all, you've done your bit, and you walk off.
It makes things worse.
It does.
You're not marriage guidance counsellors.
No.
You're not professional counsellors. You have no idea how to interfere with other people's lives. When you do that, you make things worse. Unless that person is actually looking for some assistance, a kind ear, a listening ear, that's what you may be good for. You,
in our situation, some of the things that you did to us as a couple, in many other situations you would have driven us away. What you did actually do was drove us together.
You drove us together
because we could see, well, why is that happening, and that doesn't make any sense. And you actually pushed us into a position where we ended up having a stronger bond because of the position we've been put in. And I give you an example now, which is where we're coming on to. One of the first experiences we had as a couple to your controlling and interfering was we were still individuals living separate lives. Our families have known each other for years. What I mean by that, the Williams, Siemens side of the family and the Lathams, they've always had connections. For example, my mum used to date Mark's cousin when she was a single lass years ago, and in fact I think Steve Latham wanted to marry my mum at one point, but ended up marrying another sister, which was lovely. And when they got married and my parents got married, all 4 kids we used to go and stay with Steve and Sue when they used to live in another town. And so I remember growing up, with Mark's cousin as Uncle Steve, you know, and Auntie Sue. That's how I remember them. And so the connection between the families has always been there, and we've always got on really well. Anyway, going on to what happens next is Mark is living in a town that's 25 miles away from where we are now, but he works in this town, and both the boys, his children that were with him at the time, go to school in this town, so they were commuting every single day.
There's a long story behind why, and it's just, we won't labour on the point. There's a long story behind why the children were so far away from their schools. That's a completely different subject.
Yeah.
But anyway, they were living with me.
Yeah.
And
you were commuting every day.
I was commuting every day, as well as travelling around the country.
And then back and everything else, yeah.
And doing other things.
But Mark's mum lived here in this town.
Yeah.
And she'd been disfellowshipped a few years beforehand. She'd been inactive for 20 odd years, didn't she? And then eventually disfellowshipped.
Yeah,
which is another subject of control. We'll go on to another day, I should imagine. I think you've already mentioned it.
I have mentioned it in a post in.
We'll clarify it one day, haven't we? Anyway, so Mark's mum's living back here, and Mark's making an effort and a chance, because he'd faded away from the organisation a few years beforehand. Numerous things had happened, and was trying to make an active move back to the organisation.
I hadn't got rid of it. It was still in here, and it never leaves you unless you re-educate yourself. We all know that now.
So you went to an elder, didn't you, for a bit of advice?
I did. Somebody that I knew from previously, who I knew very well, and I rang him, I spoke to his dear wife, and I asked if I could see him, because I was desperate to want to come back. I felt this doom and gloom coming over me again, and so here I was making an effort to come back. So I went down, drove all the way to Cheltenham, where we are now, to see him. And the strange thing was, we went up to his spare bedroom, and I sat on his bed, and he sat on a chair, and I just said, "This is what I want to do. I want to come back. What do you advise? You know, how do I get this going?" And he said, "Well, the thing is, and for various reasons, he said, you need to move your children into your mum's house if you're coming back to Cheltenham." And I thought, "But she's just fellowshipped." "Yeah." He said, "Yes, I know." I said, "And she's a heavy smoker?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay."
Now, his mum used to live in a flat. It's only had 2 bedrooms, so she didn't really have room to have the boys anyway.
Yeah.
But not only that, if Mark was trying to make an active move back to the organisation, he was now being told by an elder not only to move his children out of the same house as he was in, so out of his care, but also to be moved in with his mum, who was disfellowshipped and a heavy smoker. Made no sense to Mark at all, did it? Made no sense.
It was very bizarre.
Very strange thing to be told.
There's a number of things.
Move your children out.
He kept saying that just didn't make any sense, and they weren't cohesive in any way. They weren't actually giving us any sort of stable plan. And I actually came away feeling very dispirited by the meeting, because everything he said made absolutely no sense at all. In fact, it would have just been an absolute nightmare to have done all of those things, to put my pressure on my mum like that, to put pressure on the boys like that, who didn't want to live there anyway. They wouldn't have wanted to do that. And so it was back to plan A, which was basically me, work out exactly what I was going to do next, because the pressure was on to get the kids back to where their schools were, and I needed to do that. And
well, and that's where I came in then, because meanwhile I know nothing about this, and I'm going through my own problems with my divorce in Swindon, and I'm eventually moving back to my hometown, which is now here, Cheltenham, and I'm now in Cheltenham, and I'm living in my own little house, and I've got the group at my home, and there's myself and my little girl that are living in my home, and my parents are up the road, and it's just worked out really nicely. Not interested in men, really not interested in another relationship at all after what happened with my previous marriage, and just everything's fine. And then Mark's situation comes to light with him needing to move back to Cheltenham, and I'm in a position where I've got a little house and I've got 2 bedrooms that are free, as I had made my little house into a 4-bedroom little place, and I'd made the offer to have Mark's boys, And I said, well, look, I've got 2 bedrooms. The boys are more than welcome to come and stay with me while you're trying to come back and sell your house, if that's of any help. Then my parents came on board and actually offered a place for Mark to stay. So all of a sudden, this move back to this hometown that he wanted to come back to suddenly seemed more feasible.
Well,
it also was doing exactly what this elder had suggested in the first place, of moving the boys to Cheltenham. He could then move as well, and it made perfect sense. So I offered the place. Mark absolutely jumped at it. The boys, I got on really well with the lads anyway, and they were chuffed to bits. And I was quite local to their school, so it made perfect sense.
I wasn't living with Cora. I was in a separate house.
We liked each other, but we didn't like each other in that way. We just thought maybe something in the future, if it was going to happen, it was going to happen. And as I said to you, I wasn't interested in having another relationship at the time. I really wasn't.
No.
But
it was very, very early.
Yeah.
And it was very early. And at the same time, while all this was going on, we were able then to help another brother and sister rent the house, rent the house up in Cinderford. And to allow them to be able to move in there and have that at a much reduced cost. I was still paying half the mortgage, but allowed them to move in there and have the place that they could have at a much reduced cost, which was very helpful to them.
But in the meantime, obviously Mark and I fell in love, and we ended up thinking, well, this is lovely, and we wanted to move things forward. And to be honest, it moved quite quickly, because the situation that we were put in by the elders was, I was told that the reason I had the group removed from my house is because I had the 2 young lads living in my place. I said, well, what are the 2 boys? They hadn't even come and approached me about the situation. How they got the information was through the elder who had told Mark to move the 2 boys out of his house. His daughter actually went back, gave all this information over to her dad. Her dad did the big pot stirring, and before you know it, I've got the group removed from my home without even being told that that was going to happen. And suddenly everybody's looking at us 2 as if, what's going on? And we're like, nothing was going on.
So let's just stop there for a second. So here we have men that have made a judgment without first of all talking to you.
No.
They didn't talk to you.
No.
They didn't talk to me.
No.
They didn't talk to your parents.
No.
They didn't talk to any of us, the people that were actually
involved
in all of this. and what was it that actually happened here? Well, we had a sister who's decided to help temporarily 2 boys live in her home, okay, in a spare room, which is a Christian act. And
I didn't even see them.
While this brother, Mark Latham, is trying to come back into the religion.
Well, what made us laugh was the whole situation was literally they were just sleeping there. I never saw them because they had activities after school. Mark was still working full time. He would literally come down, get them in the morning, go straight off to work himself, drop the kids off at school, and I wouldn't see any of them at all. In fact, they were hardly around for tea in the evenings and stuff like that. So actually, it was literally just a case of sleeping in the rooms. That was it. That was all they were doing. In fact, I only had them a week when suddenly the group was removed, and the boys weren't even around on the day when the group was going to be there that week, because they had other stuff going on. They had lives all of their own, literally just a sleeping arrangement. That was all it was. But it actually forced Mark and myself to start talking more about what was going on.
Well, because we were under siege.
We were livid.
We were slaughtered. We were both our characters were assassinated in the congregation. Who is this man bringing his children to another sister to live with?
I even got told.
How dare they? How dare those boys be living with?
Do you know what? Do you remember? The one sister actually turned round to me, and she said to me, "How do you know he's not just going to leave you with the kids?"
Do you know?
And I was like,
that's exactly what she said, and I know who that sister is. She said, "Oh, he's going to leave the kids with you, and he's going to leave."
Do a bunk. I said, do you know what? If he ever did that, I wouldn't bother me in the slightest. I said, because I love those boys to bits. I said, I've got on really well with them. I said, I couldn't, if that's the situation, and Mark is that type of person that he's just going to leave his kids, I would be honoured to think he could do that with me and feel safe, that they're going to be safe with me. I said I'd be panicking because suddenly I'd be a single mother of 3 other people. But I just couldn't believe this sister did that.
No, and this particular sister knew me very well.
Yeah. So it's
has
hurtful.
known me for a number of years, knew me very well, and was coming out with this. Now, this is why we're sharing this, because this has many different levels to it. About not only were we being slandered, both you and I, on separate occasions by the gossips in the congregation. The religion, all of them, not one of them could accept the fact that we were doing something that was Christian, that was actually a good thing to do.
Out of the box.
It was out of the box.
They couldn't figure, because they had no control on it.
They
wanted very much to get that control back.
Yeah.
And by that point, Mark was actively looking for a place for him and the boys here in Cheltenham, and he was going to rent for now, try and sell his house in Cinderford, and that was the step. But living here actually gave him an opportunity to go and view properties, to do this,
and
it
financially
just made a complete,
so much easier.
It made sense all the way round.
And I was in Cheltenham. I was in a position to go to the meetings. I was in a position to get the boys to the meetings and make the whole thing work.
It doesn't. I don't want it to sound now that we're justifying stuff. We're just trying to explain to you exactly what situations that Mark and I have been in through separately and then coming together. How we eventually got together, basically, was, I think, the way that they manipulated the whole situation with trying to control everything that was going on. As I say, pushed us to thinking and talking and acting more and talking about the whole thing together. And it made things escalate very, very quickly.
Yes, it did.
And I remember one of the main conversations that Mark and I actually had revolved around a phone call that I had when I was living in the property, and there was about 5 of us in the living room.
I remember
and
it
I
very
had a
well.
phone call from this particular brother that has been a nosy busybody in people's lives for years. I picked up the phone, I put it on loudspeaker, and I ended up having to have an entire conversation where I was trying to tell him everything that he was saying was completely the opposite, and he would not let it drop. He kept hammering me, not realising I had witnesses to the phone call, literally with his big hammer bashing me in the floor. He couldn't have got me any lower if he'd have tried. And because I kept saying to him, no brother, yes brother, 3 bags full brother, he literally loved it. He was almost getting off on the fact that he had me in a corner. And Mark was livid because the things he was saying were so rude and so intrusive on my own personal life that he had no right to be talking about. But he was very, very explicit and felt he had every right to say the things he did.
Control you and manipulate you.
A
single sister, a consenting adult, a woman that's divorced, living her own life, completely independent from anybody else, and yet this man rings her and slaughters her on the phone. He slaughtered her. Yes, you did, and you know exactly who you are. I'm as angry today as I was back then over what you did, because it makes me realise how many others have you done that to. You think you have the right to do that.
This is the thing. You can't do this to people, because there are people out there that aren't strong, and they will hear what you're saying and they will act on it. And they will do things that will go against their nature because they think it's the right thing to do, and they think that because it's coming from you, an elder, that suddenly you're God, that you are the be-all and end-all, and you're not. You are a human being, and you are very, very human in the sense you make mistakes too. In fact, your kids have made many, many mistakes, but have always been covered up because they are who they are, and you are who you are. And that's what gets me very frustrated, is that it, depending on who you are in the congregation, if you are the son or a daughter of an elder, you do get away with a lot more than if you aren't.
In a lot of cases.
And in our situation, having no elders in our family and no ministerial servants either at the time, we are, apart from my uncle, but who was very far removed from me in my situation at the time, it's you're literally on your own, and you're scrambling for air because you're being pushed down constantly. And I know that the elders do this. So going back to that letter that we were reading earlier on another video about shepherding, you have to have a compassion there in the first place to be able to do this carefully. And sometimes the way that you think you're shepherding, for example, if you thought that phone call to me that time was a shepherding call, then trust me, if I wasn't a strong person, and if I didn't have people around me that understood the situation and heard that phone call and also agreed with me that it was completely out of order, I could have been squashed so far into the ground. Who knows what I could have done?
Now, can I just add something in here? After that phone call had finished, you came off the phone and you were a wreck.
Yeah.
You were an absolute
Well, he'd emotionally beaten me into the ground.
He had. Now, this is another interesting point about this particular religion. Now, this man has put the phone down after he slaughtered this woman here. Slaughtered her. Got inside her head and completely slaughtered her. Made her feel cheap and dirty and degraded, humiliated, all of those things. He put the phone down. Now, this is an interesting point. If, when that happens, when an elder abuses his position, which quite clearly on this occasion, he really did. There is nowhere for you to go with this.
No.
You can't go to an appeal. You can't go through a grievance procedure and say, can I now speak to XYZ and I need to appeal a grievance against this particular individual who's abused me. There is no place for that when an elder does this. When they decide to put on an elder's badge and they want to abuse someone, it happens.
And there is no. We know this for
appeal.
A fact because what this one very same person who said the rumours about Mark leaving his kids with me, her husband, who's also an elder, turned round and said that she said about him that you've hurt one of their own. That's it. It's very much like a boys' club. When it comes to the elders, they do very much look after each other. And if you have a grievance against a certain elder, it usually gets brushed under the carpet. So if you have got the guts to say something, or the nous to go up to another round, I've just had another brother come up to me and he's been very abusive. If you feel that you've got the guts to do that, and you do actually have the courage to go and say it to somebody, 9 times out of 10 it will be brushed under the carpet anyway, because they look after themselves. It is like a little boys' club, and I don't want to be dissing any elders out there that are the kind and generous and gentle ones, but if you are in a position where you're hearing this video now, can I ask you please to look at the way that you all treat your flock,
how you conduct
and the ones
yourselves
in the congregation, because 9 times out of 10 you will just go by your little book and you will think you've done a good job, but meanwhile the actual sheep that you've been looking after is in bits down
damaged.
the corner and
They're
having
very
to
damaged.
pick up the pieces all by themselves or by 1 or 2 others, and it goes completely wrong.
And there are no recriminations. You can do these things and you have a carte blanche to just get away with it, whatever you want to get away with. We all know that. And there are many elders that we're now talking to, ex-elders, that have agreed and they share things with us, and they've been through hell themselves because of the things that they've had to do or the things that they thought they had to do. And when they look back, they're horrified.
Should never have done it.
At where they were.
I'll give you another example. That same brother, we found out the house that we were originally living in, bizarre, but we moved next door, which is where we are now. Long story, but our son stayed, our eldest son stayed next door. He's now my son. Very proud.
Yeah.
And he stayed next door once we were married. And Mark and myself moved in here with our other 2 children. And we're living very happily here, and he's there, and it's great because he's so close. And so he had a couple of rooms spare, so eventually rented these other 2 rooms out to a couple of other people, and they ended up being brothers and sisters. And one particular sister, who happens to be very close with this other particular family, was told to spy on us and to feed back to the elders everything that was going on in this house. And when we found that out, we found it so funny. We thought, imagined her up at the window with her binoculars looking at what was going on.
It's funny, but we laughed
what
about
an
it at the time.
intrusion.
It's a massive intrusion.
How far will they go?
Yeah. This sister was telephoned. She was telephoned and told to spy on us. And so what an abuse on that particular sister.
Yeah.
What an abuse on us.
Yeah.
And once again, it proves very clearly that they think they can just get it. That's harassment. There are harassment laws in this country about that type of thing. It's stalking, it's wrong, it's illegal. But they get away with it because they are Jehovah's Witnesses.
But they feel they have this right to know everything, every detail there is. In fact, when Mark and I went through our judicial, like we did years ago, when we were first together and married, the questions that they asked us, looking back now, we should have just said, what on earth has that got to do with you?
How dare you
How
ask that?
dare you ask
how
that? But
dare
at the
you?
time, we answered them.
Yeah, we did.
And you think to yourself,
I just can't believe we went through that.
the control that they have over you, they ask you a question and you automatically answer it. And you don't even say that's got nothing to do with you, and actually put them in their place. They are, at the end of the day, exactly the same as you and me and
No
Mark.
different.
No different. They are either a married person or a not. They've got a wife, children. They don't, just because they get the badge called elder does not give them an excuse and a right to be intrusive into your life.
No, not at those levels. It's disgraceful.
It's disgusting.
When you think that many of these elders, and as the years go by, you unfold many different pictures about their lives and things that they've been doing wrong as well. All of us are imperfect people, and that's what this so sorry mess is about. All of us are struggling to just get by in life.
Yeah.
And what happens is that because they put on the elder's badge, it doesn't matter what they're doing in their lives. And believe me, I've got many stories that I could share that would absolutely slaughter them if I wanted to. But I'm not going to go there because it's out of love and
it's
respect.
got nothing to do with you. We love you. As individuals, we love you. But the things that we've witnessed you doing, and because we've witnessed it, we know that you're doing this to other people too. We almost want to shake you and wake you up and say you need to wake up and stop harming people and thinking you have a right to control people's lives. You don't.
No,
and if you walked away from the organisation tomorrow, I would welcome
be
you
the first
knocking
to
on that
embrace you.
door.
We would.
Regardless of what you put us through, it's got nothing to do with it. It's in the past. But the point is, you need to really see what it is you're doing. And no one's ever going to do that to you in the organisation because they're all too controlled by the cult to know elders are somehow superior to everyone else in the congregation, and it's not the truth.
Can I also add to that whenever these judicial meetings take place or private shepherding calls, it's completely confidential. This stuff can never be shared with anybody else. It's an absolute outrage if we were to talk about something that you'd said to us with another brother and sister. We would be cancelled for that, probably disciplined or reproved for it too. So also the fact that you do and make the decisions and say the terrible things that you often say to vulnerable people who are very worried about where this is all leading, you then leave knowing it's confidential and you've got away with it when you decide to abuse, because you don't have the professionalism, you don't have the counselling skills, you don't have anything other than what we've already got to get through this. But that's what's so damaging about the religion. It's all confidential. Not going to talk about it. Interesting, isn't it?
We've got many other experiences which we're going to come on to on other videos, but that's just one experience that was several experiences together where we weren't doing anything wrong, but we were still controlled and still condemned as well. And what you did was make us stronger, and you made us start to wake up in another way, in the sense of, you did start those old brain cells together because we were talking about it as a couple of people, along with a couple of other people there as well, and as a group we were all looking and going, this isn't right. So you've made so many mistakes as elders that really someone needs to point them out. And we've made mistakes through our entire life.
Of course we have.
We will continue to because we're human. But we need to make you realise that you need to acknowledge that fact, that you are not the be-all and end-all, and you don't know all the answers to all the questions.
You don't know any of them.
Stop playing God.
Stop playing with people's lives, and stop damaging people. It's toxic. What you're doing. It's not Christian.
No. But anyway, we still love you.
Thank you very much for listening.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Bye for now.
Bye.